I guess before properly starting the video, it's important for me to establish what I actually mean when I say diet. And what I'm referring to is a way of eating with a man-made set of rules. And that could mean you only are allowed to eat a certain food group, for example, meat or plants, or you can only eat a certain amount of a macronutrient, for example, protein or fat or carbohydrates, whatever it may be. A way, what I'm referring to is a way of eating whose rules has been decided by a person. And you might be asking, like, what actually is the problem with that? And I guess the simple answer is that because it's man-made, it has problems. As with all things man-made, there are a lot of problems that come from what we do. And I guess the goal of this video is to go through all the problems and try and convince you to not go on a diet, and to to just explain to you how stupid they really are and how harmful. And I guess we'll see. With diets, there are kind of two categories of problems and like what they affect. These problems either affect you physically through your health, and they could be negatively affecting you and putting you in bad health. And then the second category is the mental effects and all the mental problems that come with having a diet. In the first part, I'm going to be talking about really the main problems, and I'll start with the kind of physical ones and the health problems that come with, the main problems with diets that affect your health. And then I'll go on to the main problems that affect you mentally. And then after that, I'll kind of give you a solution to all the problems that come from diets. And we'll see how it goes. One big problem with diets is that they're all very unnatural. And this means that a lot of diets are actually missing things and nutrients that we actually need to survive. And I guess I could give lists of, or I could list diets like this. I mean, the vegan diet, to be honest, all diets are missing things that you need. And a clear telltale sign of this is if your diet needs you to take a supplement, you are not getting all the nutrients you need through the food. And by the way, supplements are really not good for you, and I'll make a whole separate video on that. But if you need to take supplements for your diet, you are missing nutrients, and that is a huge problem. And it's a huge problem that can't be masked over by a pill. And then the next thing is that with these really unnatural diets, we're restricting people from eating things that they naturally desire. And to be honest, I think almost all diets share this in common. I mean, if you talk about the vegan diet, all these people are going out of their way to restrict them from eating a really important food group that we need to survive. And that goes for the carnivore diet as well, with restricting things. And I guess as another telltale sign with this is that we see, for example, vegans trying to get meat alternatives to their food, like vegan burgers or vegan sausages. And it's the exact same for carnivores. Me personally, I was a carnivore for 2 years, and I guess I'll make a separate video on the carnivore diet and the problems with that diet specifically. But you see people like making carnivore bread and carnivore cake and all these like stupid like carnivore chocolate. What are you doing? You're clearly desiring carbohydrates or sugar or whatever it is. You're clearly missing that thing so much that you need to try and mimic it. And this just shows how unnatural all these diets, all these man-made diets, are just causing everyone so many health problems because they lack nutrients and because we're forcing people by these man-made restrictions to suppress their natural urges for food. And I'll go into it later on in the video how important these natural urges are for food and natural desires for food are. But there's a reason we desire certain things, and it's not an accident. We'll go into it more later on in the video. I'm going to go into the mental issues. But just to sum up, all of these really unnatural diets are either missing nutrients that you need or making you suppress the desire for nutrients that you want and that you naturally want. And as you can imagine, when you're the way you eat, or let's say your diet, but when the way you eat restricts you from nutrients you need and restricts you from nutrients that you naturally want, you can imagine all the issues that can come from that. And being deficient in nutrients is really going to have a lot of issues in the future. But yeah, let's get into the next part with the mental issues. And another aspect of these man-made diets is that they can get really obsessive. And people on these diets begin to obsess over the rules of the diet. And if they break the rules of the diet, they feel guilty. And this causes real problems with food guilt and real problems with mental health issues around food. And it's really not what we want with such an important part of our life. So yeah, these obsessive diets and obsessive eating habits create a really unhealthy relationship with food. And I think all diets share this in common. I mean, we can talk about the vegan diet, and I guess we can kind of bring in the next point into it as well. There's an obsessive culture and there's an obsessive nature to these diets, and also a toxic culture as well in the community surrounding these diets. And these two things really kind of feed off each other when we're talking about the mental problems with diets. And they really contribute to a guilt. We can talk about vegans, where if you have any desires that's not plants, you should feel guilty for that. And if you cheat on a vegan diet, you're a horrible person, and you don't care about the planet, and you don't care about animals, and you're an immoral person. And it just goes on with every single other diet, with the bodybuilder diet, when you're just being so obsessive about, oh, I need to get my protein. Like, what are you doing? You're eating just terrible things, but as long as you're getting your protein in, it's okay. And then we can talk about the carnivore diet, we can talk about the keto diet, whatever diet it might be. It's all too obsessive about food, and it's just really not how we should look at food in a healthy way. And the toxic culture comes into all diets as well. So the obsession and toxic culture, like in the carnivore community, which I was kind of a part of for like 2 years or so while I was eating a carnivore diet, let's say. It's really obsessive about plants are terrible for you. Plants will cause all these issues for you. Carbohydrates, this kind of comes in with keto as well. Carbohydrates will give you diabetes. Carbohydrates will give you all these problems. And it's just really unhealthy and really puts a lot of pressure on people to eat a certain way, and it makes them feel wrong for feeling a desire to eat something else. Like when I was on carnivore, I always kind of had a desire in me to want fruit or a bit of sugar or a bit of carbohydrates. I can remember when I first started, and it must have been after maybe like 5 months or something, and I went to stay with my friend in France with his family, and I obviously couldn't stay on the diet because his family was feeding me and all this sort of thing. And I can remember the first meal, that it wasn't even like a good carb source. It was like a wrap or whatever it was. We had this really nice meal, but it's beside it anyway. That first carb was like a drug hit to me. And in the carnivore community, that's like seen as like a sin. But to me, that's like a natural desire to eat a carbohydrate. And it was obvious to me, I mean, only quite recently, that all these desires I had for sugar and for carbohydrates were natural and shouldn't have been suppressed just because of some rules that some man had made about a diet that, by the way, has never been seen anywhere in nature apart from in the Arctic Circle, and maybe is rumoured to have happened in the Ice Age, but that's a time of true scarcity, and it's not how many of us are living. We're not living surrounded by glaciers and surrounded by ice caps. And yeah, it's quite sad, all the people in these communities who are struggling with guilt and just struggling with the mental problems that come with such a restrictive and such a strict set of rules that you have to follow, which, by the way, aren't even natural and aren't even good for you. So it all seems pretty stupid now, doesn't it? You're eating an unnatural way, which isn't good for you, with strict rules that don't even help, and a toxic culture that isn't helpful whatsoever. So, yeah. And then the next point I wanted to bring up is that these diets require discipline and effort. And the way you eat should not take any effort. And it should not require discipline whatsoever, because you should just want to eat them things. And it shouldn't be difficult to follow a diet, and it shouldn't be difficult to eat how you want to eat. You should just be able to eat whatever you want and be healthy. And I'll get into it later on in the video, towards the end of the video, why that's kind of hard in today's day and age. But yeah, I guess I should probably just go on to it. I mean, all these diets that take so much effort and take so much preparation and take so much discipline to even stick to, which, by the way, you'll never be able to stick to for your whole life. Anything in life that comes with true friction to do and you need a lot of discipline to do, you will never be able to keep it up for your whole life. And that's just not how you should eat. You should eat in a way that is sustainable, and a way that you can eat every single day and not feel heavy, and just feel light and be able to just eat what you want to eat. And it should be easy. And I guess I've gone straight on to the next bit, is how should it actually be? If we're not following a diet, how can we be healthy? Because surely we have to follow a diet to be healthy. And I'll go into it now. The way you should eat, the way you eat, should be easy. It should be effortless. You should be able to just get up, eat what you want to eat, and be healthy doing that. That would have been the reality of our ancestors for millions of years. We would have been able to just go out in nature, find food that we intuitively wanted, we looked at, we saw it, we tasted it, we liked how it tasted, and that would have been good for us. We would have seen an animal and wanted to eat it. We would have seen a sweet, colourful fruit and wanted to eat it. We never would have gone out of our way to make rules about what's healthy to eat, because we just knew what to eat. It was just intuitive to us. We just knew. And it was there. A human in nature would never go out of their way to eat a green leaf that clearly looks unappetizing and clearly tastes bitter. They would never go out of their way, by the way, unless they were starving, to dig up a root that was tough to eat and that tasted shit. They would never go out of their way to eat a seed that gave them very little energy and tasted bad as well. They only would have done these things in a time of pure scarcity and a time of hunger. And as I said, it's quite sad that we can't do that in today's day and age and just eat what we want to eat and it be healthy. Because we can't really trust our intuition so much anymore. We can, but not with all these fake foods. Because all these fake foods that are man-made as well, again, problems with man-made things, all these man-made foods are very palatable and taste nice in the short term. But they're unnatural and they cause us a lot of issues. And this is where all the problems in our modern day come from. And I'm going to try and explain how we can get around them and still trust our intuition in today's day and age. So how should we eat in an unnatural world if it's not with a man-made diet? And the answer to that is to try and mimic how humans would have wanted to eat in an ideal scenario in nature. And it's really simple, and we don't need to give ourselves rules, but we just need to trust our intuition and eat different foods. And for example, in nature, the food you would eat would generally be raw, and you wouldn't be able to cook all the time in nature. Obviously we have fire, but fire was only really used for food when it was really unpalatable and really hard to eat. For example, to get calories out of an undigestible thing like a big root, like the root of a plant. To get calories out of that when it's really hard to eat raw, you need to cook it to get anything out of it. But as we know, with fruit you don't need to cook it, and it's the same with meat. And I guess I'll probably have to make a separate video on it. But meat is perfectly fine raw as well. And we know that because we've got all plates around the world, like sushi, sashimi is all raw meat. We've got steak tartare, which is raw. There's countries all around the world which eat raw meat. And that's what we need to go back to. We need to eat food in its natural form, because all these foods that we eat nowadays, we wouldn't even dare eat in its natural form. Have you ever tried a grain in its natural form? What cereal's made out of, what bread's made out of, what bagel's made out of, what pasta's made out of? Have you ever tried to eat a bit of wheat? Would you really want to eat a potato raw, or an onion, or a spinach leaf, or any of these vegetables raw? No, because they're disgusting. And there's a reason for that. Whereas fruit is great, it's sweet, it's nice, we want more of it. And it's the same with meat. It's kind of different because of everything we've gone through, and all of our upbringing has taken us to a point where a lot of raw meat is kind of unpalatable to us. And there are reasons for that, because a lot of the meat we find nowadays in supermarkets is pretty bad quality, and you probably shouldn't eat raw because it's such bad quality. Okay, I might have made it a bit confusing there by rambling a little bit, but to sum up, we need to eat as humans in nature would eat, and that's eating food in its natural form. And if to you you like eating green leaves, go for it. But once you eat food in its natural form and you can taste it and you look at it and feel it, use your intuition. What tastes nice to you? What doesn't taste nice to you? And that's what you need to eat. What tastes nice to you? Use your intuition. Don't have any rules. Don't say, oh, I can only eat meat and fruit, or I can only eat meat. No. Don't give yourself rules. Just eat what you intuitively want to eat in its natural form. And you might say, oh, but that's a diet. You're saying I can only eat things in its natural form. I'm not saying that. That is what is ideal. Ideally, we'd want to eat things in its natural form. But obviously, we can't always do that. Sometimes we have to eat meat that is unsafe, that is factory farmed because we can't afford it, or we have to eat other things because it's all we've got, it's all that's available to us. But all I'm saying is, forget all this diet stuff. Forget all these man-made rules telling you what to eat, and follow your intuition with natural food, or food that's similar to nature. Because you could ask, isn't all the fruit we have nowadays genetically modified? And isn't all the meat we eat selected, and all the meat is unnatural? You could say that, and you'd be right. But just because the fruit is genetically modified doesn't mean it's bad. The fruit, we're actually quite lucky that we're born in a time where fruit has been genetically modified to taste nicer to us. And that's a blessing. Our ancestors would have had to struggle to find palatable fruits and had to forage for a long time to actually find good fruit to eat. But luckily nowadays, we've modified fruit to have less harmful seeds, more meat, be more sugary. And this all fits with our desires and what we intuitively want. We intuitively want sweet, juicy fruit. We intuitively want fatty meat, intuitively. And this might have been kind of sucked out of you throughout the years. But you need to remember that your, factory settings are still there. You still desire all these things. It's just going to take you a bit of time to get used to eating how a human is meant to eat. And that's without rules, and that's with natural food, or food that kind of mimics nature, let's say. So let's summarize the video, because I've made it a little bit confusing. Diets are not man-made diets are not good because they're man-made. And because they're man-made, they have a lot of problems. And these problems generally come from them being unnatural and lacking nutrients and making you suppress desires you have. And this is all really unhealthy for you physically. And then there's mental issues, like having a restrictive diet and having guilt, and an array of problems that come from being really obsessive about how you eat. And then the solution, which I've made quite confusing. It's not, it's really quite simple. We want to mimic as best we can a natural diet. But this doesn't mean heavily restricting what we eat. This just means looking at what humans would eat in nature and trying to mimic it in society. And this is generally meat and fruit in a natural form. And we should do the best we can to eat this. But I'm not saying you can only eat meat and fruit. And I'm not saying you have to eat it only in raw form. But just be intuitive about it. Taste cooked meat. Taste raw meat. Taste cooked vegetables compared to fruit. What do you prefer? And work from there. I'd personally say the base is meat, either cooked lightly or raw to preserve the nutrients, and it tastes better to me intuitively, and fruit, because I personally don't really love the taste of vegetables or anything else. And that's pretty much it. Try foods, see what you intuitively like, and foods in their natural state. Things like rice and bread and pasta and heavily man-made foods. Look, we can call it a diet if we want, but when you eat natural food, you intuitively don't want to eat it. So maybe if you have to cut them out for a while and just try and eat natural food, and try and just get back your factory settings, because you intuitively want to eat healthy food. That's the whole point of your taste and intuition. You know what food is good for you by how it tastes. Food that doesn't taste nice is not good for you. That's the whole point of taste. So yeah, I guess that's the end of the video. I mean, just use your common sense. What tastes nice to you, what doesn't, and what's natural. That's pretty much all there is to it. You haven't got to force yourself to eat things you don't want to eat in the name of being healthy, because it's not healthy, because you don't want to do it, and it takes discipline to do it, it takes effort to do it. Your diet and the way you eat should be easy, and you should just want to eat it every day. You should have no trouble eating it, because it's just what you want to eat, and that's what's healthy. So yeah, I'll make future videos making it a bit easier to understand, because I've kind of brushed it up a little bit. But yeah, anyway, to end the video, if you want to talk to me in more detail and I can actually explain things properly and not just in a little video off the cuff, and I can actually hear your problems and speak to you personally, and yeah, get to understand you better and how I can help you improve your health with nutrition and maybe some other things, yeah, click the first link in the description to a free community, and yeah, I can give you a bit of help for free if you're interested. Anyway, that's the end of the video, and I'll see you in the next one.